Jim Barker, we could do a documentary on him and his 5 Grey Cup championships. Hey, Jim, where are we catching up with you today, Coach?
I'm at the regional combine. Well, it's the combine before the combine. So it's guys who didn't get invited to the national trying to get in. And probably the biggest, it's in Waterloo, guys from all over the country. And, it's probably the biggest story is the guy who's not here, DK Bonham, he's an interesting guy. He's from Ottawa, the Ottawa area, but he went to Indiana, played linebacker at Indiana, then went to South Alabama, played 3 games there, and then got hurt, left, didn't play last year, but he's a guy, he's 6'2", 237. He's, played at the highest level down south, and he's not here. He's the one who everybody kind of was really looking forward to. So, you always get the things of, somebody got a hold of him and said, don't go, and we'll draft you in a... Does that happen? Maybe some, but I doubt it. But so that's kind of the biggest story is who's not here.
Well, I read something coming out of the NFL Combine. They're referring to it as the opt-out generation. Let me just say this. As a personnel guy like yourself, how do you feel about a player opting out, no matter what the league is? What does that say?
Well, it's interesting because this morning I was watching the vertical jump, and a kid said he's not jumping, and I looked back and wanted to see him, and afterwards I had moved and I was moving over to the 40, and he comes by and says, "Sir, I know you made not a comment, but made a look at me when I wasn't going. I just want you to know I had a hamstring." A lot of times a guy, if he's going to test, for example, he's a defensive back. If he's going to vertical jump 27 or 28, sometimes maybe they're better to just say they have a sore hamstring or they can't do it. I always look at guys funny that do that, the opting out. Now in the NFL now, the injury stuff, and I get all that. In the CFL, we get a lot of guys who come up that, like at the maiden combine, who maybe won't work out. They'll come and talk to the teams, they'll interview with the teams, but they won't work out. That was Uguak last year, did that. And there'll be a couple this year, and then there's a lot of them that don't go. For example, UBC has 2 guys, Theo Benedet and Giovanni Manu, that both are very, NFL guys, so they're doing their own pro day. And a lot of these guys who play in the States, they have pro days, which are basically combines at their school. So they choose to do that because they'll be seen by more NFL teams rather than come to our combine, which goes from March 20th to March 24th. So again, it's been going on for years. I mean, agents used to, the CFL would fly them in, and then they wouldn't participate in the one-on-one drills and the things that the coaches really wanted to see. So it's kind of been an age-old problem ever since they've started doing combines. But for the most part, a guy, if he's legitimate and good, he's going to go, and he's going to go hard in CFL. I'm not talking about the NFL, because now you're talking about millions and millions of dollars, and those agents know where their guys are going to get drafted and that kind of thing. Like Caleb Williams not throwing, is that going to affect his draft status? I would doubt it. All these teams bring these guys in. They're allowed to go visit all these. So it's a totally different thing in the NFL. Our league's not the same. Our league, the combine is important, and guys will move up and down their board based on what they do. So this combine, again, every year is guys who didn't get in the main one. They'll take 4 or 5 guys from this to the main combine, and that's about what, that's about all there'll be. Nobody broke 4.5. 4.55 on the Jim Barker clock, which is the only one I trust, was the fastest time. So, there was nobody. Last year there was a kid who ran 4.3 and change, a York receiver. And then he went to the main combine, and, he became more of like the rest of them. So there's nobody here who's really stood out. And but the whole combine thing is a really interesting thing. Now, we'll be doing the show from the regular combine that week because I'll be there. CFL.ca is going to live stream, the combine. So I'll be on the 40 and we'll talk about each player. I grade them just like I'm a GM. I have them ranked. I'm going to talk about guys I think, where they have a chance to play in the CFL, what I think they'll run, what they need to run. For example, I just had a cameraman say, "What do we're doing DBs. What's kind of the cutoff?" And I said, "Well, it's really hard to put a guy who's 4'8" in your secondary in the CFL. The receivers are just too fast, it's just too tough for them to play at corner or halfback as a 4'8" guy. They have to be down in that 4'6" area. If for a linebacker, he needs to be in that 4'8" to 5'1" because it's called long speed, because he's going to be on special teams in the CFL. And if you run a 5'4" here, it's hard to have your special teams coach take a guy who's maybe bigger and try to put him on special teams. So these things are important, and they will move up and down the draft noticeably based on the combines.
Well, and here's the other thing. We don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but there is a window. Opting out aside, like, for instance, the guy who slept in here in South Florida at a Rider free agent camp that I was at, shows up an hour late, tells Chris Jones, "I'm sorry, my alarm clock didn't go off." He's like, "Sucks to be you." Like, you're done. There's a window, Jim, right? There's a window, and for a lot of players, this is it.
That's true. A lot of these players, if they've run poorly or they don't show, they haven't done any skill things yet, anything on the field yet. But if they don't show something, their careers in terms of playing in Canada would be over. They can go play, I guess there's leagues where they can play up till they're 22. But in terms of professional football, this is it for a lot of them. So it's a tough road. And when you think about the draft, even out of the draft, if there's going to be maybe 12, 13, 14 guys who actually stick with teams all through the year. And so the odds are really tough. And, so it's a tough business to get into, but you have to seize every opportunity. And that kid who slept in at Jones's workout, now I'm shocked. My guess is he already took the money train. No, he's not even doing workouts anymore because but it was back in the old days. Actually, John Jenkins and I were the first two that started it back in 97 with Toronto. And Don Matthews, we were getting more calls on these camps we were doing because we were charging $60 in those days. And, so the more guys you get, that $60 per player, and there was two of us there. And Don Matthews walks in one day to Jenks and I, and he says, "The YMCA is over. There are no more camps happening. I'm done taking calls," because every phone call was about our camp. So, and the CFL,
I bet.
Some teams still do them. A lot of teams don't.
Yeah. Well, I was asked this morning in this documentary, if you heard me saying they said, "What made Don Matthews special?" I'm like, how much time you got? Swagger? I mean, whatever. Hey, I wanted your take on the CFL passing showcases, which were announced for Halifax and Edmonton, 7-on-8. Big deal, man. What do you think about them?
I think it's a great concept, bringing in guys and again, emphasizing what our game is about, which is you have to be able to throw the ball. And, it's a great learning. I don't know what coaches they're going to have there, who's going to be installing the offenses, but it's just great for young kids to get an opportunity to go out and not only show what they can do, but learn from, ideally, they'll have real good coaches there and that kind of thing, and help these young quarterbacks with how you read defenses and how you do these things. So anything the CFL does of that nature is helping grow football, and that's what it's all about. I think since I came in the league in 96, the league has grown so much in terms of grassroots. And back in those days, Montreal, there was a great grassroots program. But I know in a lot of other places it wasn't that way, and it just seems like it's grown, and that's good. I think that's why we're seeing so many quality athletes. There was 4 at the NFL Combine. guys who came out of Canadian youth football and went down and played down in the U.S. and whatever. So it's just a testament to what's going on, and the CFL doing its part and that kind of thing is a great thing.
Hey, just lastly, an NFL note, Russell Wilson has come free. He's entered the free agent pool. USA Today has him ranked 31st of the pending top 50 free agents. What's your take on the fact that he's available and that it didn't work in Denver?
Well, the fact it didn't work in Denver isn't a surprise. The Nathaniel Hackett thing he went through, and then he gets Sean Payton there, who's the exact opposite of Nathaniel Hackett. And, he was first got there and he was given his own office and like a coach, and he was treated differently. And then Sean Payton came in, changed. I think it was just a real tough environment for him to have any success in. But he's a guy who's won Super Bowl, or at least been close to winning the Super Bowl. So if you're a team like Pittsburgh, where I think is a team that will definitely be looking at him, you're going to be interested in Russell Wilson. You're not going to have to pay him the same kind of money. And can you get a guy at the end of his career to come in and allow your young guy that you drafted in the first round pick to grow instead of throwing him in there and continuing to beat up his confidence? Let him go and watch the way a pro does it. And for Russell, it will be, okay, now I'm in a normal situation. I go from Denver, which is maybe the most worst situation in terms of continuity and the way they do things, to the best in Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and they don't change coaches, and they have a way of doing things. And a guy like Russell Wilson could grasp onto that, know exactly what he has to do, and he'll go in with a chip on his shoulder. So is it the Pittsburgh Steelers? Who's it going to be? The Atlanta Falcons? Is it going to be somebody who has a young quarterback that maybe is just not quite ready, that they don't necessarily want to go out and draft a guy, but they want a guy who can come in and show their guy how to, and Pickett is a perfect example of that kind of guy. I mean, like I say, if B.J. Ritter's going to be the guy in Atlanta, then he's the same kind. That's the same thing there. So, I mean, there's some obvious places for him to go, but it's like you and I talked about last week. You don't go to the Super Bowl without that position taken care of. And having a guy who's done it is so important. And he has said he can still play. And again, Ricky Ray, when he came to Toronto, people said he was done in 2012. Well, he won 2 more Grey Cups, 2012 and 2017 in Toronto. So, again, when you have guys like that, it always gives you a chance to win. So it won't be shocking to see him, go around and visit a lot of places, and he'll help a team.
Yeah, very valuable guy. As are you, Jim. Thank you for the time. Enjoy the rest of the Combine.
I will. Thanks, Rod.
Our football analyst, Jim Barker. Wow, I did not know he was going to be live at the CFL Combine in Waterloo, Ontario. That's exciting. And our chats with Jim Barker are brought to you by EMJ Marketing, Speakers Bureau, providing the perfect keynote speaker for your event. Look up Joe at emjmarketing.com.